And we continue at 2:06 in the afternoon. It's the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wangs in Culver City.
John, an employee of Topgolf in San Jose, is blowing the whistle. He alleges that the company forced him to work while there was running raw sewage in his establishment, and he is speaking under the guise of anonymity to NBC Bay Area.
Water was dark and brown, and it started smelling really bad in the venue.
That's repulsive.
Also, doesn't it kind of sound like the oh yeah guy?
I love that things have gotten so wild here. Anytime a crime victim speaks on the news, they have to treat them like they're a mob informant.
And the water was dark and brown, and it started smelling really bad in the venue.
Just another totally normal day here in the insane asylum. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. It is a pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. He's the author of the book, They're Not Listening, How the Elites Created the National Populist Revolution, available online at Amazon.com. You can also follow him on X at Ryan Girdusky and subscribe to his Substack, and you can get all of that information if you follow him on X. Ryan Girdusky, welcome.
Thanks for having me again, John.
All right, so there are a bunch of books out now about Joe Biden and about the 2024 campaign for the presidency that are dominating all of the headlines. And Jake Tapper, I guess his book is debuting today, that really has a bunch of different examples as to how Joe Biden not only lost his marbles, but is arguably worse in private than he is in public. So all of these claims that are being made that no one knew that he had lost a step, to put it mildly, are not true. And there was a massive cover-up. And then right as the book tour was going on, and that was the topic of conversation, it was revealed that Joe Biden is suffering from a very aggressive form of prostate cancer. And the various news programs have had urologists on, medical experts on to talk about this. And regardless of what channel you're watching, there seems to be a consensus that none of them are believing the timeline that the Bidens are putting out, that it's virtually impossible to get this kind of aggressive cancer that's spread to your bone without your PSA levels being elevated, without there being some kind of indication a very long time ago that something was wrong. If, in fact, their theories are true, and Joe Biden knew long ago when he was president that he had cancer, and he and some cadre of people around him, whose names I guess we can speculate on, but we don't know for sure, they consciously decided to cover up the health of the president and the cancer diagnosis of the president. How big of a scandal is this, and how big of a scandal should it be?
I mean, listen, in historical terms, we've seen this before. Kennedy was in horrible shape health-wise when he was president. FDR obviously died in office. He was in such bad shape. It just hasn't happened recently, so there hasn't been this kind of a controversy recently. I think that I was watching Two-Way today, and the Democratic guy, I forget his name, he's very, very articulate. He sat there and he said the question isn't was there a cover-up. The question is, should Joe Biden have been in office at the last year of his presidency? That's the real question. And Mark Halper brought up a story that no one's really talking about, is that apparently the Bidens are broke. They don't have a lot of money. I guess the hooker money took most of it up. But they don't have money that the Biden family, whatever that number is for them to survive, they don't have it. That's why Uncle Joe is back on the media circuit hiring agents, which only happened several weeks ago, that he was hiring a top talent agent to do, I guess, a Netflix special or whatever, that he's out there trying to do media, looking for a book deal aggressively, looking for money for his library. They need money, and it's one of these families, and we've seen this in entertainment certainly, where basically one person is responsible for funding the lifestyles of everybody. And it is, it's sad. And what I think is really what we're going to see is the desperation of a man in his final act, where he will probably be doing more media. doing more things, doing more press, doing more speeches, whatever he can do for that last press. I got to make money for the family. I really think we're going to see him even more shameless because it's clearly there's no one in his life that really cares that much about his health.
What you just described is very common, particularly in the entertainment industry, where, let's say, Frank Sinatra was one of the most famous singers of all time, but when he hit a certain age, he was having difficulty getting around. He was having difficulty performing on stage. Yeah, he had Alzheimer's disease. He was falling down on stage. But everyone around him made money based on Frank Sinatra performing, particularly in Asia. In Asia, he was super popular at the end. And they were flying him to a different continent to perform in hockey arenas and domes and all of these huge places when the guy should have been hanging out at home watching Judge Judy. But instead of allowing him to do that, they were sending him on these world tours where he was embarrassing himself and damaging his reputation, but they had to put the old man out there for all of them to make money. This was going on with Michael Jackson. Why did everyone make excuses for his behavior? Why did everyone look the other way when they knew that there were things that were very wrong going on in Neverland Ranch? It was because he was the meal ticket, and you got to protect the meal ticket at all costs.
Michael Jackson, Judy Garland. I mean, you could go on and on and on of people taking advantage of a person either who is a child who shouldn't be working and should be a child, or is too old and too sick, but they need to keep the money train going. And that is why the last person who agreed to let him drop out was Jill and Hunter. I mean, that's the truth, is that the last people who let him sit there and say, okay, relax, go enjoy or not even relax, we can't do this. It was the ones closest to him. And I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sure it was like grandpa trying to take the car keys away. He didn't want to go. But at some point, it's your loved ones who tell you can't drive anymore. It's not, unless something goes really wrong, it's either that or the cops. And in this case, it was the cops being Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, because no one would tell him he couldn't drive anymore. And he was out on The View talking about how he's going to fight Trump last week or a week and a half ago, whatever it was. It wasn't a long time ago. And so if he had this cancer diagnosis for quite some time, he probably knew about it for since the View interview happened. The View interview was only 2 weeks ago, and he was talking about how he was going to fight Trump. He was meeting with CIA agents, what is it, 3 months ago, 2 months ago? How long did he have these symptoms for where they said, hey, maybe before we meet with a talent agent to try to get a Netflix or Hulu deal or something like that, or a documentary or a book, we probably go to the doctor to see if you can, you could do it because you're 82 years old. His life has never been the concern. And I think that in that family, and this is my opinion, in that family, Joe was the breadwinner. Everyone made money off of him, and they expected Bo to take his place, run for president, maybe be president. Everyone can live off the Bo Biden gravy train, and he died. Bo, unfortunately, died before his father did. And so Joe had to, I don't think he had to run for president to, because Bo told him to, like he said in that stupid book that he probably didn't write. I think Bo told him, I think he had to, because Bo couldn't do it because Bo died and they had to make money through government connections. That's how the brother, the son, he's got, unfortunately, the two children passed away in the car accident. He's got the son who dies of cancer. The other two kids are addicts. This is not a very easy life story or family story. And for a man who looks severe, and I had a grandfather who died of Lewy body dementia. I've seen someone in severe cognitive decline. There were times with Joe Biden honestly reminded me of my grandfather. And severe cognitive decline, and the last people to tell you to stop are the ones closest to you, and this is a normal behavior. It is very shocking, and what's shocking is the rampant, in my opinion, senior abuse going on in that family in plain sight. And I forget who was in the New York Times, some New York Times column, Maureen Dowd, the tragedy of Joe Biden. That was her headline over the weekend. Give me a break. We are not talking truly about what is happening in front of our eyes, which is rampant senior abuse, government corruption, and the fact that one person is working basically to sustain an entire family.
Let's take one step removed, because the family, obviously, I think what you just described is accurate, and they are able to eat because of Joe Biden and their proximity to him. But take a look at Ron Klain, his chief of staff. If Joe Biden goes away, no other president is going to hire Ron Klain to run the White House. He needs Joe Biden there just as much as the family does. If you're Kamala Harris, you're never, ever, never, ever, never, ever, never going to win a contested Democratic primary on your own unless you go in as the incumbent. You need Joe Biden there, so he rolls a 7 when he's in office, and you become the incumbent president, and you get to run with the power of the DNC behind you, so no one can beat you in a Democratic primary. There are other people close to Joe's orbit who had just as much of a motivation as the family to keep him there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Listen, there's no way I know enough old people in my life, and I have known enough old people in my life, either through family or through family friends, who when they miss a step, they're getting a little dotty, we're repeating the same conversations over and over again, they need to go to bed earlier. You can tell. It's not, and it's tragic and it's upsetting, and it is, but it is part of life. Dying is part of life, unfortunately. Getting older, if you are lucky, is part of life. And the incessant need for whatever the purpose, whether it be power in some people's cases, political, a career pick-me-up in the case of Kamala, or to sustain a certain lifestyle. I'm sure that the Bidens aren't broke like we would think broke is, but I'm sure it's broke for them when you probably are supporting all the grandkids. God knows if they have any, significant others, the children who are living, all of the spousal and child support. I'm sure it's a very hefty 5-6 figure a month bill you got to keep it going with. And so you got to have some money. Grandpa Joe is still out there working. It is just shocking to show for a man who has had a reputation as being, I wouldn't say loving, but kind and big-hearted and having a ton of friends. The man didn't have a friend in the world looking out for him.
Well, and just think about the personal aspects of this. And I've seen this with people with their parents in my own life, where Joe Biden, he's the kind of guy that you and I would probably get along with well because we don't mind big personalities. He had a temper. Yeah. I can deal with people who yell. He's a blowhard. If you work in entertainment, if you work in politics, you deal with a lot of blowhards. So we wouldn't bat an eye.
Do you want to name them? Does the name rhyme with Barry Manilow? Sorry, go ahead. Just joking. I'm just joking. Go ahead.
But if you live with that, I can imagine getting annoyed by it on a day-to-day basis. And as he started to lose his marbles, based on reporting in these books and other places, he was more irritable. He was always snapping at people. He was always in a bad mood. He was always angry. So at a certain point, if he's the meal ticket, but you just learn to hate him over time, then the idea of just riding him as hard as you can until you kill him and get every cent out of him, get every drop of juice out of the squeeze, is probably something that they were willing to do.
Yeah, and you know what? And he said, and when people are old but they don't know that they've missed a step, he was not like, oh, he probably was like, I could still do it. And they're like, yes, you can. Rather than someone caring for you and saying, it's about time you step away from the cameras. Ronald Reagan, for all of his faults and all of his ills and everything about him and Nancy and whatever, he said at the 1992 Republican National Convention, you will not see me in public anymore. Because he didn't want the last memory of Ronald Reagan to be the man with dementia he didn't want you to sit there and remember his legacy. And this is a man and this is one of the few industries still that people truly care about what their legacy will be. Not many people care, businessmen or otherwise, but politicians generally care about the idea of legacy. His legacy could have been, and it depends on you agree with this, but he could have been the man who convinced Barack Obama to promote gay marriage. Could have been the man who, did I'm sure some Senate bill he did, or paved every road in Delaware. I don't know, something or other throughout his entire life, and his memory will be not only the horrendous cover-up of his health, The man who, if you hate Donald Trump, which every historian basically does, the man who got Donald Trump into office again, and the person who lied about it all along the way. And, there's just not enough time left in this man's life, I don't think, to change any of that. I think the die has been cast on his legacy. And what's shocking is his family doesn't seem to care. His family just sits there and says, and also if they knew about this, if they knew his health was this poor, if they knew he had cancer, and they used it to fight off the tabloids that he has dementia, how horrible is that? You're out from dementia is cancer. So, or whatever, cognitive decline. I won't say the man has dementia. I don't know. But if he has some kind of cognitive decline, the answer for your cognitive decline is your cancer diagnosis. This is just horrendous. And then they had some doctor from the White House saying we were trying to save money, so we weren't doing the tests for the cancer. What kind of, get a better lie than that. What is going on? It's shocking.
And I don't know if you've seen these reports, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't even think his personal doctor is an MD. I think he's an osteopath, isn't he?
I don't know if that's true. I didn't see that report, so I can't say. But I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked. This is, I don't know. I genuinely, there are very few things that really stun us. But I think the question should be that the media should be asking at this point is not should he quit the campaign earlier, which would they say in order to, somehow they would have cast a magical die and Kamala would have been president, which never would have happened. But should he have resigned midterm? Should he resign by the midterms? That's really the question they should be asking. Should he have been in office as long as he was? And thank God, by the way, there wasn't a Pearl Harbor on American soil or 9/11 on American soil in the last 4 years. Because I don't know if that man would have been the person to sit there and solve anything. We are so lucky as a nation that nothing truly horrendous did happen that has happened during our lifetime. Things that are not far-fetched, but things that have happened, the last 100 years didn't happen under him, because I don't think we would have been in a decent shape.
Ryan Girdusky, author of the book, They're Not Listening, How the Elites Created the National Populist Revolution. He writes an excellent Substack. I'm a subscriber. You should be too. You can find the link to his Substack by following him on X at Ryan Girdusky. Ryan Girdusky, thanks so much for stopping by.
Thank you.
If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, with the end of the show quickly approaching, if you want to continue listening to us after we sign off at 3, that's easy to do.
All you got to do is search for The John Phillips Show wherever you get your podcasts and hit subscribe, whether that's the Apple Podcast app, iHeart, Spotify. Search for The John Phillips Show. Hit subscribe. You could download all the episodes. You could also do a Google on the YouTube. Every episode gets posted right there. Just search for The John Phillips Show, and then you'll be caught up on everything, including all of our recent Crime Blotter stories.
This van here was on fire.
And right now it's time to reopen the California Crime Blotter.
If the cashier is dummy.
Questions?
And Randy, this edition involves comedian Bill Maher.
Bill Maher owns a pot store with Woody Harrelson, and it got ransacked last night by thieves.
He's not going to like that.
For more, here is ABC 7 Eyewitness News in Los Angeles.
A celebrity-owned West Hollywood cannabis shop is targeted over the weekend in an organized smash and grab. Criminals this afternoon are still on the loose. Thanks again for joining.
It's an L.A. story. What do you expect?
Every time the dateline is Los Angeles, you could almost guarantee the phrase criminals are still on the loose will be part of it.
Thanks again for joining us here on ABC 7 Hulu and wherever you stream. I'm Ellen Leva.
I'm David Ono. The Woods WeHo is owned by comedian Bill Maher and actor Woody Harrelson.
Surveillance cameras captured the heist on video, and 5 suspects are seen breaking and entering, then getting away with bags full of merchandise. Eyewitness News reporter Sid Garcia is live in West Hollywood with more. Sid?
And one of the partners of the cannabis store you see behind me says that these got away with a few $1,000s worth of merchandise.
By merchandise, they mean pot.
And by the way, these are all cash businesses. So generally speaking, if you break into a weed shop, you're not only stealing the merchandise, but there's probably a safe with a bunch of cash in it too.
Take a look at what we're talking about. The Woods Dispensary back in business this morning after being robbed early Saturday morning. Employees were able to clean up the mess that the burglars left behind. Some broken glass on the floor and some display cases that were busted up.
Sounds like this wasn't a Kia crash. This was your typical hammer or crowbar.
The old-fashioned kind.
The dispensary is owned, as you mentioned, by Woody Harrelson along with some partners.
Fact, Woody Harrelson went on Gavin Newsom's old podcast last year, you know, the one with Marshawn Lynch, and tried to invite Gavin Newsom to come hang out at the Woods.
Now, Woody Harrelson, of course, was one of the bartenders on Cheers, and today George Wendt died, an actor, famous actor, who played one of the patrons on Cheers.
Norm.
The doors were open, welcome customers today. The break-in happened early Saturday morning around 4:30. The video shows one person looking for a window to go through, armed with a screwdriver.
A screwdriver?
That's really analog.
A window was eventually broken, then 4 other people rushed into the dispensary. Once the windows were broken, the first person was joined by the other group. Now, according to one of the partners, the thieves got away with between $2,000 to $3,000 worth of merchandise. Earlier today, one of those partners describes how unusual one of the thieves looked and what the thieves did.
Wait, unusual that way he looked? Where are we going with this?
What does that mean?
What the thieves did once they were inside.
They went in and they just randomly took stuff off the shelves. So while there was a lot of mess from the broken glass, nobody was hurt. They got merchandise, but they didn't actually damage too much inside.
I think it's
They just wanted the pot.
It sounds like it.
I think it's a sign of the times for sure that everybody's angry. Nobody's friendly like we used to be. I think that
I thought all the, legalized pot was going to make everyone friendlier.
Yeah, it's supposed to make you mellow, isn't it?
Also, it was supposed to wipe out the illegal market, and the illegal market has only grown.
Yeah, that backfired.
Well, and part of that is because the taxes are so ridiculous on this stuff that it's cheaper to sell it illegally and deal with all the fines. And what's happening now, where cities across the state are having budget shortfalls, their answer is, let's increase the taxes again for pot.
I think it has to be stopped.
And I just think recently, in the last year, it just feels like you can't go anywhere without thinking about the possibility of a smash and grab or some sort of a crime. It's really sad.
Think about how much you pay to live in West Hollywood or to open up a storefront in West Hollywood.
It'll be interesting to see if Bill Maher makes this part of his program on HBO.
Oh, how could he not?
Well, we know that when he was trying to put solar panels in and the regulations in California turned that into a nightmare, he confronted Gavin Newsom about it. But crime is something that Gavin Newsom claims is going down in California, and now Bill Maher is the victim of a crime. Let's see if he brings that up.
One of them, I believe, was a little child.
Whoa!
A child?
A child? A little child?
Boy, they start him young.
One of them, I believe, was a little child.
Wanted some of those pot gummy bears, did they?
Maybe it was the Lincoln Project break it in.
I had a feeling that was coming.
It's only about this high and moves like a child, so...
What, did he waddle? How old are we talking here?
Based on the description, it sounds like some child who's like 6 or 7.
Couldn't have been more than 8 years old. And that was the most shocking thing about this.
Take your kid to work day.
And Mr. Berman says at our sister dispensary in Santa Monica, he believes the same crew broke into that dispensary. There, a security guard fired shots at the 5. No word of any member of that burglary crew was injured. Again, this one opened.
That guy's a bad shot.
Well, yeah, imagine shooting at a 7-year-old, though. They're little.
No word of any member of that burglary crew was injured. Again, this one opened for business still, and nobody was hurt during that smash and grab. Reporting live in West Hollywood, I'm Sid Garcia, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
There are so many people that decided to get into the legal pot business when this thing got legalized a few years ago, and it costs so much money. They're being outrun by the illegal competition. They get broken into left and right. They can't put their money in the banks because of federal regulations, and The state of California, the cities of like Los Angeles, San Diego, what have you, they just decide, okay, let's keep taxing them. That'll work.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, after hearing the details involving not one but two of Bill Maher's pot shops that were robbed, maybe he won't talk about it on his show. Because if in Santa Monica they were getting robbed and the security guard opened fire and almost killed that from Fantasy Island.
You can't say that word anymore.
Oh, come on.
You can't. I have to text Lewis now.
All right. Well, maybe we can bleep it and play it later.
Sure.
All right, Randy, it's time to reopen the California Crime Blotter.
If the cashier is dummy.
Questions?
And this edition involves your own backyard.
In Van Nuys, the police accidentally stumbled upon an illegal casino.
Who is gambling in an illegal casino when there are Indian tribes that have casinos all over the place? Las Vegas is a 1-hour Southwest Airlines ride away. Laughlin, you could take your RV there, whatever the case may be.
Not only that, with all those fantasy apps, you could pretty much gamble on your phone all day long.
Well, with the California lottery, you could do scratchers at Ralph's.
Or at happy hour.
Do that daily.
For more, here's NBC4.
Now at 4:30, it's like an arcade, but apparently one for adults.
It's one way to describe it.
Yeah, it's a machine, and you get to press the buttons.
That's what one person said after being detained after police stumbled upon what they are calling an underground casino.
NBC4's Gordon Takamatsu live in Van Nuys where it all unfolded. Hey, Gordon.
Well, Michael, police served a search warrant at this property a short time ago, looking for evidence basically that some money was changing hands. But as you pointed out, the people we were speaking with who were detained say it was little more than a social club with arcade games.
That's not what that was.
No, it's the Buffalo machine.
Late morning on Valerio Street in an industrial neighborhood off Valjean. Dozens of people.
Yeah, I don't know why they don't pronounce that Valjean, but in the valley, it's Valjean.
They pronounce everything like Judd Clampett. Wilshire Boulevard.
Valjean.
Late morning on Valerio Street in an industrial neighborhood off Valjean. Dozens of people led out to the sidewalk by LAPD officers, hands cuffed. Alan Parness and his wife Sandy owned the building next door and were watching it unfold on security cameras.
And I'm thinking, boy, something big is going on. I didn't know what. Right.
This all started when police responded to an unrelated burglary alarm call a block over. When officers arrived, they spotted the person they were searching for heading north on the rooftops. But when they came to this building...
What is this, Mission Impossible?
It sounds like it.
But when
is Tom Cruise doing his own stunts again?
But when they came to this building, they stumbled onto something they didn't expect.
Illegal casino games and that sort of evidence.
So they're chasing a burglar, and while they're chasing him running through this industrial district in Van Nuys, they just happen to walk past an illegal casino with a whole bunch of people.
Now, what happens, though, if the cops start busting up the illegal casino and you're in the bonus on Huff and Puff or Huff and Even More Puff?
You think those machines actually pay out?
Not in someone's house in Van Nuys.
Evidence.
Melissa Cruz is one of the people detained. She says they look like little kid games to her.
What does that mean?
Well, Huff and Puff looks like a cartoon.
You could go to Chuck E. Cheese or Shakey's and they have similar games in there, you know? Like,
This is not Chuck E. Cheese.
No.
You telling me that you went to someone's house in Van Nuys to play skee ball? Is that what you're telling me?
Shooting baskets?
You could go to Chuck E. Cheese or Shakey's and they have similar games in there, you know? Like,
In your mind, this is...
This is definitely what everyone was coached to say as the police were raiding the casino.
Yeah, we're just here, playing Street Fighter 2. That's all.
In your mind, this is not gambling.
no, I don't think so. Like, I mean, it's like a boys and girls club for like adults.
Boy, every time she takes a crack at it, it just doesn't get any better, does it?
I feel so proud to live near this neighborhood.
Whatever it was, the LAPD says it's illegal. They're calling it an underground casino operating under the cover of darkness. The Parnesses said they had no idea what was going on next door, but in hindsight, maybe there were some clues.
We know that they had the place turned around in 3 days after the last people moved out, but we didn't know what was going on at all.
Like Melissa.
The casino moved in.
Oh, yeah.
Like Melissa, Cheyenne was processed by police right out here on the street.
I don't think that's her real name.
No, it's not.
Processed by police right out here on the street, along with dozens of others, then released with a court date later.
I just got a citation. I'm not sure. Yeah, being present at an illegal gambling place.
And do you win money?
She sounds young. What are you doing there?
You think there's a Cirque show in the garage? Or how about nudes on ice?
And do you win money?
You can, but I mean, usually people don't really.
Boy, they found the smartest people in the neighborhood, didn't they?
You can, but I mean, usually people don't really.
And this is the type of person that gets to vote, drive, and reproduce.
You do understand that this is the neighborhood that voted for Imelda Padilla, right?
The neighborhood kids, the down-ass kids don't like it.
It all makes sense now.
We did see some people handcuffed and actually taken into custody. It's not clear who they were, perhaps proprietors, who tonight could be facing some more serious charges. Live in Van Nuys, Gordon Tokumatsu, NBC 4 News.
There you go. The Van Nuys Underground Casino. No, it's not a casino. It's a boys and girls club for adults.
How many slot machines could you fit in a single-family home?
You'd be surprised when they bust things up. There could be dozens in there.
Okay, they talked to the neighbors about all the clues that they missed. Where did everyone park?
It's the Valley. There's street parking everywhere. There's a lot of abandoned buildings.
Let's say you hit a jackpot. Some of those jackpots on some of those machines can be quite substantial. What they do in the casino is they pay you in cash. So if you win, let's say $125,000 on a slot machine jackpot, they literally bring you suitcases full of cash. They don't give you a check. What happens if you win the $125,000 jackpot at the house in Van Nuys at the illegal gambling hall?
My thought is someone follows you to your car.
Yeah, they pull a gun on you, and guess what? The slot machine may indicate that you won the jackpot, but you should just be happy to save your life.
I mean, we know that was happening with the card houses, the legal establishments in Los Angeles. You're telling me that someone actually walks into this place in an industrial park in Van Nuys and walks out with 10 grand? There's no way.
And then to hear them try to explain it away to the news, well, it's kind of like an arcade. There's just some stupidity you can't fix. And it's on full display in Van Nuys.